So get this. Giannis Antetokounmpo, former MVP, brought Milwaukee their first championship since Kareem, cream of the crop. Why is he being booed at home? Well, they were down 30. Now, not to a bad team. And they were down 30 by half. Yeah, that's pretty bad. However, if you think about it, in a grand scheme of things, this is just another great story for everyone wanting Giannis for some reason to leave the team. Now, may I give you an example of this may not being the best choice unless it's for money? Uh, Paul George was on the Pacers. I think Paul George was on course. Now, broken leg aside, was on course of being the greatest Indiana Pacer of all time, at least up there. And he decides to go to these other teams, and everybody, he went to the bubble and they started calling him Pandemic P because he was playing bad. I'll be honest, if he was on the Pacers, I don't think that would have happened. Call me crazy. Damian Lillard, he was a Trailblazers great. Literally one of the greatest Trailblazers of all time. Clyde Drexler, all those guys. Damian Lillard, right there. LaMarcus Aldridge. Bill Walton, God rest. Goes to the Milwaukee Bucks. Does nothing. Basically, gets hurt. Now he's back on the Trailblazers. Taking the year off because of his injury. This doesn't always work out, especially with the star player of the team. I'll take James Harden, for example. James Harden was one game of going to the NBA Finals with Chris Paul and the Houston Rockets. One of the greatest Rockets of all time. And I'm not exaggerating with each one of these guys I'm saying. Like, these guys, at the time that they leave their team, they're literally one of the greatest players. Former MVP James Harden with the Rockets. Goes to the Nets, does absolutely nothing there. Nothing. And I don't think it was about money. It was just like a new change of scenery, something like that, man. I'm just saying, looking for this championships and going somewhere else. If you need a new change of scenery, that's something else. I'm saying digging for these championships, digging for gold. You're digging for fool's gold sometimes. That stuff doesn't even exist. Because you team up Damian Lillard and Giannis, and you team up Kevin Durant and James Harden and Kyrie Irving. Kyrie Irving's another example, which, I mean, it's a little controversial because there is some reports with that the Cavaliers wanted to trade Kyrie for another player. But Kyrie goes to Boston. He left the championship team, one where he, again, you can argue one of the greatest Cavaliers of all time, Mark Price or something. And you, especially one of the greatest guards, goes to this other team, the Celtics, who have a rich history and all that stuff, gets injured, and bounces around the league for the rest of the time. Which, he goes to the Mavericks and ultimately, redeems himself. But at the time, if that story ended with the Celtics, it ended with these injuries stacking up with Kyrie, there was no comeback. I mean, there's no solid legacy. Even with Kevin Durant, where it worked out perfectly when he was left the Thunder, people do not let it go. They don't give him the props he deserves for that championship ring. They don't give him the props he gives for the MVPs. They act like the career doesn't even exist. And then while he's in another team like the Phoenix Suns or the Rockets at this time, they act like he needs a championship to prove, where we saw in his prime where you put him with another great player, other than Russell Westbrook. And, Draymond's a very good player and Klay Thompson a very great shooter. You get this team that's unbeatable. And they ruined the game in such a way with this whole second apron stuff that now people have no earthly idea how to build their teams because they have to get rid of their star players after their fringe players. So the chemistry is way off. So the gameplay is so off because there's very few teams that have that continuity of more than 3 years together, 4 years together, because they have to get rid of the fringe pieces. I really think the Nuggets would be like a better team if they were able to keep some of their fringe players around Jokic, because especially with someone who orchestrates like that, it's better to keep players than keep removing and putting them back in, because it's not a system you're teaching, it's playing with the actual player, Jokic. If it was a system, they would have kept their coach. You know what I mean? The Clippers is another one. Kawhi Leonard literally wins the championship with Toronto. He's a hero in Toronto. Kawhi Mania. Goes to the Clippers. They kind of they're a playoff team every year. That's it. He gets hurt. That's it. It's just different. Everyone's going to remember San Antonio and Toronto Kawhi. People are going to act like this Clippers run's going to be just him collecting checks. Doesn't help what happened this offseason either, but I'm really going to monitor this whole getting booed at home for Giannis and other players, because maybe this is the secret sauce to maybe keep your star player who's highly determined here. Keep setting the bar higher. There's still more to solve in Milwaukee. They don't want one championship. They want multiple. Put pressure on the front office. To be fair, getting Damian Lillard, which I feel like was a mistake to give him, I don't care how mad he is. I gave you all this money. You really gonna sit out, bro? People are like, oh, unhappy. I'm like, how are you unhappy with 200 mil? Are you unhappy with that? I don't get it. I don't like playing it. You like playing it last year. It's basketball. You travel anyway. You're only there like 40 games out the year. I don't get it. I don't get the whole I gotta move thing. Unless you really hate the city. Which I don't think if you look at Portland and Houston with James Harden and Giannis with Milwaukee, I don't think they hate the cities there. Thank you for watching, and I guess keep booing Giannis. Maybe they'll get him to stay.